Hello and welcome to this exclusive session on essential communication strategies for leadership success presented by Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta and VC Now. I'm your host, Pallavi. This 6 months long executive program in communication strategies for corporate leaders or EPCSCL is designed for working professionals looking to progress into larger roles. As strategic communication capabilities become a key influencing factor to realize your goals, your vision, and mission, the executive program aims to equip participants with strategic skills in leadership communication to enable them assume leadership positions in future. So if you have a work experience of 8+ years and if you want to improve your performance through effective and impactful leadership communication, the program is for you. To understand how this program by IIM Calcutta can act as a game changer in complex business scenarios, helping you build not just intellectual capital, brand capital, but as well as social capital, I would first like to invite our special guest for the evening, Mr. Darais Mehta, founder director of VC Now, to kickstart the session. Welcome to economictime.com.
Right. Thank you, Pallavi. Thank you for the kind introduction. So I'm just going to take a brief moment before the faculties come in and talk about the program. So communication is a life skill which is useful in all walks of life, be it professional, personal, or even social interactions, right? And all of us tend to believe that we are reasonably good communicators, right? And who can communicate well. But if we really sit back and reflect, we'll find that almost all our communication is very instinctive and very intuitive, right? Now, communication is also not only limited to human interactions. I mean, in business, communication goes beyond human interactions. It gets into marketing communication, brand communication, corporate communication, business and leadership communications. Like Pallavi said, operationalizing your mission, vision, goals, objectives. And as one grows in the hierarchical, leadership in the organization, people tend to look up to you more on what you say. Every word that you say is evaluated and judged further, right? So this is a program which focuses less on how you communicate because that is taken and that is for granted, right? But this program focuses more on the what aspect of communication, what you communicate, the content or the thought behind communication, the idea or the strategic intent behind the communication. And that typically what is called as the content architecture in communication. How do you architect your content of communication? Now, how do you do this, right? So most people talk about communication as an art. Well, let me tell you that this program goes beyond that. And I would call it the science behind the art of communication, right? And communication strategy is the science behind the art of communication. The esteemed faculties have done extensive research across various streams and disciplines and have been able to distill and crystallize and cull out their knowledge from research into very easy, understandable, implementable frameworks and toolkits, which can be used depending upon the situation and the type of audience you're communicating to, right? So there is so much and more that one will kind of, understand about communication. To just kind of, on a parting note, typically, normally we talk about communication as eliciting the ability to elicit a response from the other party who's receiving it. Well, let me tell you that this program takes it to the next level, right? This program not only lets you elicit a response from the other party, but it will help you elicit the response that you want from the other party. On that note, I think it's time for us to introduce the faculty. Right?
Sure.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for building the context and letting us understand, the benefits and the purpose behind the whole program. I would now like to take a few minutes to introduce everyone to the program directors of the EPCSCL who will share their insights to the importance of learning essential communication strategies. Joining us for this session is Professor Pragyan Rath, Faculty and Program Director, EPCSCL, Business Ethics and Communication Group, IIM Calcutta. Dr. Pragyan Rath teaches communication at the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta. Dr. Rath's teaching philosophy is to inculcate conceptual imagination and its transitioning ability into innovative methods of inquiry. Dr. Rath has written extensively on innovative methods of communication analytics and continues to contribute in the multidisciplinary field of corporate communication. We're also being joined by Professor Nandita Roy, Faculty and Program Director, EPCSCL, Business Ethics and Communication Group, IIM Calcutta. Dr. Roy's research is multidisciplinary at the intersection of philosophy, technology, gender studies, storytelling, and new media, with special emphasis on video games. Her academic training in qualitative research methods in humanities and new media, coupled with her experience in the media and communication industry, informs her understanding of philosophy, ethics, gender, and India. She seeks to better understand how these intersecting areas can help create a more diverse, inclusive, and ethical business environment. Welcome to economictimes.com. With this, I would like you to tell us more about the EPCCL program. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Pallavi, and also thank you, Mr. Mehta, for setting the context, which is really, really well done. To add to that, before I hand it over to my co-program director, Dr. Nandita Roy, just a short preview of what the program is, how it came into being, and what exactly we do, and thereby what exactly is essential communication strategies for leadership. I'm Calcutta, as is well known, has a long history of and a very successful history of long distance programs, and recently launched under the larger canopy of leadership programs is this very, very intrinsic and niche program called Communication Strategies for Global Leaders. And as you can see, in terms of the phrasing of the title itself, the emphasis is on, of course, leaders, the global market, and of course, strategies and communication. So it's a leadership program, but the spike in terms of leadership here is communication. And what do we mean by the spike here? In general, if you look around, there are a lot of coaching, training, and courses available in communication. And in an Indian market, particularly, communication has been positioned and understood, rightly so, because of the global demands, as communicative English. And what we mean by communicative English is good language speaking skills, which is, of course, necessary. I'm not saying it isn't, right? And it goes a step ahead with good presentation skills, body language, and impactful, essentially deliverable communication in the sense that which the audience understands. This is the basic skill everybody is required to have in the industry. This program goes beyond the basic skills, right? Because we're talking about leadership. At a leadership role, you need to understand the market, you need to understand competitors, you need to understand data, you need to convince, you need to persuade. Somebody says, Saurabh says it's not audible. Am I audible? Pallavi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Absolutely audible.
Right, thank you. I'm just continuing, right? So you need to persuade, you need negotiations done. You have external stakeholders, you have internal stakeholders, you have market in a flux. There are multiple and multivarious issues and concerns and opportunities and threats as explained by SWOT analysis and PESTEL and other kind of landscaping formulas which management has been putting forward. Where we come in is, as a leader, what is the language you use, you implement, you speak, and you architect. As Mr. Darayas mentioned, choice architect, which comes from behavioral economics. This is a communication course which is very well aware and very well informed of business. It is understanding of money, it is understanding of transactions, it's understanding of market fluxes. And what it intends to do is bring in the strategic emphasis of communication. That is, how do you plan, develop the communication content to make profit? And to make profit could be in several ways. And keeping that in mind, right, what we are looking at is how do you lead with communication strategies? So you'll be given a toolkit or a kind of framework that tells you these are the certain ingredients which you have to choose according to contexts to strategize, an impactful communication which would help you make an impact. And here what we mean by impact is an economic impact, all right? So we have communication strategy. Again, then we have something called argumentation and persuasion. Argumentation is not necessarily a common stream that we come across when we are looking at larger kinds of courses in communication and persuasion. And this is where it plays an important role, because argumentation is the ability to counter argue and the ability to cut through the convention and position something which the convention is not ready to accept. So you need good argumentation skills, which generally lawyers are supposedly to have the skills of good argumentation skills. So when we are talking about argumentation, we are going to bring in the market construct called nudge from behavioral economics. And how do you use nudge? How do you use behavioral economics? How do you understand market in order to argue for your product or service or idea as a leader? And leadership here means setting a trend, not just following it. Then, of course, we have the intercultural communication in terms of how do you strategize communication content across different geographies, right, in a global market. Then, of course, leadership means public speaking skills, because leaders speak. They speak in annual functions, they speak in convocations, they speak in the meetings, they speak on a public platform, they speak on TED Talk, they speak on YouTubes, or in general pitches, right? They might have podcasts, right? They may be on social media in a very strong fashion where they pitch their ideas to the rest of the world. So that becomes an important point in terms of not just traditional oration, but very, very contemporary oratory skills. And you're talking to a very, very diverse set of audience, of course, a global market. It's not about just geography, it's also psychographics. It's not just about psychographics, it's whether you are digitally literate or not. It's not just about digital platforms, it's also about generations. And you have this whole concept of inclusivity and diversity entering into the market. How do you talk to the generation which is 10 years younger to you, the next labor force, the next big consumer force? So of course, public speaking enters into the picture. Of course, we have presentation skills, but when we are talking about presentation skills, we are bringing in a very, very strong sense of what is called data presentation. And today, storytelling using data and data analytics has become so, so important, that how do you use data and make successful stories around it? Storytelling becomes an essential part of communication and leadership skills in today's corporate or non-corporate sectors as such. Of course, then we are going to have something called digital communication, right? What is your digital presence? How do you use digital platforms? Where and where not? And if you do, what kind of language do you use for the kind of medium or media you use in order to influence? That becomes, digital influence becomes an important part for any leader who is going to discuss markets and solutions and problems across the digital platforms. Of course, we have something called communication analytics, which is very, very niche part of the larger domain of analytics. But what it essentially does is not just look at communication as something that you use as an ornament to look good, but also communication as data. In the sense, communication itself is symptomatic of what's happening in the market. It tells you what the trend is and what the mega trend is. And particularly in today's digital presence, the visual side of communication is becoming stronger and stronger. So what do you do with visual communication? How do you understand what the trend in communication is, right? And how do you do visual consumerism and visual strategy in terms of communication, business, and markets? Of course, we have this very, very edgy, futuristic space for what is called storytelling in the digital era. which my colleague will take it forward, but just to give a small short synopsis, right? Transmedial storytelling in the gaming industry, right? Using data and telling stories in different media, right? What is happening to stories as such and how they are changing and in what capacity and for whom, it starts getting to be really, really important. And this is something that is a newer aspect coming into this program, which was earlier not so well pronounced when we started with this particular program. Of course, we have something called self-branding, right? And that becomes very, very important for all leaders, because whether you brand yourself or not, the way you talk, people tend to judge you, they tend to perceive you in a certain way, and a certain sense of you becomes important to represent not just you, but also your company for you as well in a very diverse setup. So how do you brand yourself, right? And how do you decide the do's and don'ts? How do you project what you want to project about yourself to an audience, right? This is essentially the overall synopsis of what essential strategic elements of leadership communication could be. And with this, I call upon the digital dais, Dr. Nandita Roy.
Hi, good evening, afternoon, evening. I think it's afternoon, everyone. Pallavi, thank you for that very kind introduction, and Teres for setting the context, and Professor Rath, of course, for very clearly taking us through what this course will be about, sort of navigating and lighting up the path as we go on. The way I see it, and what I think of it, is that usually we can't give you these formulas, right? That this is a solution to communicate. LHS equals to RHS. This usually does not happen. And thankfully so, otherwise there would be no fun, perhaps no human element left in communication, the anticipation of what the other person is thinking. What this program seeks to do, as far as I understand it, is to provide the participants with a larger overview of what communication is about. And when I say the larger overview, business doesn't happen in the vacuum. Business, profit, money, economics, all of this exists as part of the larger cultural milieu that we are all a part of. And that is where that is from where that we sort of try to seek and try to understand how one can strategize these things. Mr. Darius was talking about very interesting phrase, content architecture, and Professor Rath also spoke of it. The architect, what do they do? They provide a map, kind of a map, that this is how the building will be, or it will look like. And communication strategy kind of gives you the map. It does not build it for you. You have to do that on your own. But at the same time, any building has stories, right? So that is where the storytelling part comes in. Storytelling as a word has sort of caught on in the last few years, particularly in the domain of brand storytelling, leadership storytelling, strategic storytelling. It's a term that we keep hearing more and more, which is quite interesting, but it goes way back. I think if we go back to our origins and think of our ancestors, our long lost ancestors fighting it out in caves, hunters and gatherers. Even they had, they felt the need to put some red clay or paint something on the wall. So this is not new. The desire to tell stories or to communicate through stories is an ancient human drive. And if you sort of think about it, human beings are perhaps the only species who live in two parallel realities. One, of course, is our objective reality, that this is a mic, this is a computer, this is a mountain that we can see. But there's also a collective imagined reality that all of us are a part of. We are the only species capable of imagining religion, that, you know, this is 100 rupees, it is worth, I don't know, 10 sweets, I guess. So that is where these larger structures that govern our imagination, whether it is finance, money, religion, politics, all these things, if we think of it, they are also larger narratives that are crafted by us. Now, when we are speaking of these larger narratives, there is a huge change that has happened, a huge transformation that has happened in the last few years, primarily due to the intersection and the inflection of narrative with technology. So that is what that is something we also plan to discuss. We have introduced that in the course when we are talking about transmedial narratives, because now we are not bound by one form of media. Earlier, let's say, how would you get your news? 25, maybe 30 years ago, from the TV, and just from the TV, the 9 o'clock news, or even before that, before cable television, just Doordarshan. Now think of all the spaces from where you are getting information. So it's not just one space, it's many spaces, and each of these spaces behave in a different way. So what do we do in this, how do we communicate in these spaces, or how do we create a strategy for ensuring that our communication is persuasive, that it is, that it serves a purpose, let's say. So those are some of the new things that we are going to be talking about, we are going to be discussing. And I guess that's all I have to say. Unless there are any questions, I can answer those. I don't see any questions yet. So.
Sure. So we definitely will take a few questions at the end of the program. But before we proceed on to the Q&A, I would request Mr. Mehta to share some program details, because there might be some questions. Typically, people who are participating in this session would like to understand from you, Mr. Mehta.
Right. So I think, yes, I mean, I'm doing this in the interest of, time. So basically, there are some hygiene information that's required for everybody to know, so that, these questions don't get repeated. But as soon as we cover this, I think after one or two, introductions, then again, we'll get on to the Q&A session, where you can ask questions on chat, and then you can raise your hand also. We will take them on. So this is a program which is a 6 months program, the communication strategy for corporate leaders. It's meant for people with more than 8 years of experience, right? And graduation, post-graduation with 50% and above. The assessment is done on the basis of your education, work experience, profile, domain, role, through your application. And there is going to be an interview, with the program directors, to understand your motivation for doing the program. The program is delivered live online, like live two-way through direct to desktop on Saturday morning, 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, a very convenient time. And the program, it's a 6 months program, and it will end with a campus session. At the end of the 6 months, there'll be a 4-day campus at the IIM Calcutta Joka campus, where you'll have face-to-face, sessions also. And so that is obviously subject to COVID. Hopefully, we are over it. And the program application window will end in April. So I think we are in the last few days, if whoever is interested, kind of may quickly apply, because the program begins in May, around mid-May. And on completion of the program, after you attend the campus and you successfully complete the program, after your successful assessments and, you complete your assessment, etc., you'll get your certification, and you'll also become Executive Education Alumni of IIM Calcutta. The application registration fee is 2,500 rupees. The program fee is 1,85,000 for the 6 months of the course fee. And the campus module is 32,000, which is mandatory. And this is payable in 4 installments over the 6 months, right? So I think this was standard mandatory information, which would kind of make sense to all of you. So that kind of answers a lot of your questions. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for that piece of information. Of course, we'll have some more questions, but at the end, it's time now for our special segment for which I would like to invite Ms. Swamini Gunasekar and Ms. Chitralekha Dhar. Ms. Swamini Gunasekar is working with Amazon as Communications Manager, APAC and Middle East Customer Service. Ms. Chitralekha Dhar is working with Ernst & Young LLP as a business consultant. I welcome both of you on this special exclusive session. I would like to start with Mr. Swamini. If you would like to share your experiences with the EPCCL program that you've undertaken.
Hi, thanks a lot, Pallavi. And thank you, professors, for giving us the opportunity to be here today to share with aspiring people who want to join this program. This program, I think, is for 6 months, but because of the pandemic, our program was a little extended, and then we did do the campus visit. I think even the professors came after almost 2 years to the campus, so it was a fantastic closure to the entire journey that we had. And I primarily joined this program because I thought I had reached a glass ceiling with all that I had done in my communication sphere. So I've been in the internal comms area for almost 10 plus years. But when I saw this program and the kind of syllabus it had, and which has been now so nicely explained by Professor Rath and Professor Roy, right? It was very intriguing for me because as an internal communicator, I had never really dwelled in the more core business aspects of the communications part, right? When they talked about the whole practicality and the content to make profit, I had not really dwelled into that area. So there were many things that were really new for me, and the assessments are not very easy. So you feel you worked for 10 years, you know it all. But really the professors took us through a journey where it was like, I didn't know this. Oh, I didn't know this existed. And we talk about narrative and we talk about storytelling. And if you're a communicator or a comm specialist, you know stories sell. But even the storytelling or the narrative that you've been doing for so many years can take a different turn when you include some of the concepts that they teach. And that's why probably IIMC is what, it's IIMC. And then you come back with this whole knowledge saying, oh, let me try this. And in fact, let me share with you that when I joined this course, I was actually working with another firm. And in the middle of this course, I got an opportunity to interview for another organization. And I actually used some of the techniques taught by Professor Rath. Yeah, it's probably a surprise for her also. But I actually used some of the techniques for my interviews. And, I am where I am today. So that's been a very interesting thing for me. So in the middle of the course, I actually changed my job, and it was an amazing, we used to look forward to our Saturdays, such engaging interaction with our professors. They never shied away from answering. No question was stupid for them, right? However silly the question, so prompt. I mean, keeping a track of the chat, answering questions live. The professors are phenomenal, and what they could achieve online was fantastic. So for me, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and the rich experience that I take away from it, and the entire cohort, the network that we had with all the 60 plus participants, that is one of our biggest takeaways. The whole network and all that we got through this course with the professors and all the others. It's not just Professor Rath and Professor Roy, right? We had a lot of other professors who came in for the different modules, and each one of them were experts in their field, and they really kept us on the toes. And those assignments were not easy. Let me tell you that. We thought they would be, but they were not. But they really opened our eyes to so many things. So that's my experience. I hope that helps somebody out there.
Definitely, this is going to help all the participants and people who are interested in this course. I would like to now go to Chitralekha. If you have any fond memories of your time and your experience with this course.
Thank you, Pallavi. Well, I would exactly echo what Swamini just said. This last 9 months has been really very helpful in I would not say anything extra. I think Professor Rath already explained how the modules are going to be. and I am a communication professional, and so we do a lot of but this course is definitely going to help you in understanding the theoretical part of it. Like we apply, but the techniques of the application, as Swamini just said, like when you're going for an interview and you're using all those argumentation and negotiation skills, the brand credibility, that actually helps you. And a lot of it, maybe we are doing it because we are all professionals, and this course demands people who has 8+ years of experience. So all of us have good amount of experience in our daily work life, but then to understand like how to put forth the pitch, how to do the storytelling part, how to communicate and address the crowd that we are addressing, be it the new generation, be it the client, like whatever work sphere we are working. And this course is definitely going to help you in that. And yes, I also agree, though it sounds like there are only 2 or 3 assignments, but it's not easy. We have actually spent sleepless nights on assignments, which like maybe most of us must have done it during our college days, but then it's exciting. It actually takes you back there to your college days. And the campus, I should just adding on to what Swamini just said, the campus was like something very, very amazing. And I'm happy that even the current scenario with COVID and all the state rules and central rules, we were very dicey, like will we be able to make it or not? But I think the campus sessions were like really good. And it's a lot of memories. It's IIMC is of course a brand that you add on to your work, your CV. Definitely you are a brand, you are representing a brand, one of the most esteemed institutions in the country. And of course the network, like we were a batch of almost 75, I guess, and we are all from diverse field with different sector working experience and everything. We had people from as young as like maybe 24, 25 to as old as like 50+. But the way we interacted, the way we communicated with each other, the way we had built this network, which is amazing takeaway for me. Yes, I'm sure like, joining this course is definitely going to help you. It's a lot of cross-cultural running as well, because when you're divided into teams, you get to understand a lot from the other people in the team. You get to see how the other team members are working, and the presentations and everything. Like I at some point of my time, because I'm a communication professional, I thought like I do infographics too good. But trust me, when I saw other people's presentation, I actually wanted to save them as PDF in my computer, because some of them were like really amazing. And yeah, so it's not only the course module. Definitely the course module is definitely going to help you to learn the tactics and the theories of communication and how to utilize them in a corporate setup. But apart from that, there's a lot of other takeaways. You have a network, you have cross learning from other team members, and definitely the professors are always reachable. I remember most of our classes used to have half an hour, 45 minutes extra, because there were a lot of questions, and then and the professors actually never said like, okay, chalo, time ho gaya, now we have to go. And it never happened. So yes, that's from my side, and it has been amazing experience. And I think this is one of the good decisions that I've taken in my life. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience and all your fond memories. It's time now for taking up few questions. There are a few questions on the chat. We would request all the participants, you can raise your hand and we'll pick up questions one by one. However, we're picking up the first question. Mr. Duraish Mehta, if you can start picking up the question.
Sure. So Professor Pragyan and Professor Nandita Roy, there are a few people from the sales background who really want to know and understand how this program would help somebody, from a sales or a pitching perspective or a business case kind of a perspective.
Nandita, you want to take this or you want me to go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, fine. People from the sales background, in terms of pitching, I think that would be the most obvious one in the course, and you fit in very easily, because sales by default is a pitch any which way. So the few things that can help you, and beyond that, of course, there'll be more additions to things we are going to do in this particular course now onwards, which we couldn't do, unfortunately, with the batch which had Chitralekha and Swamini, and wish we could have done it with them. Sales is figures and numbers. So of course, data presentation becomes very, very important. How do you tell stories with numbers and data? That becomes essentially important. Sales and pitching across the different digital media, that becomes very important. Sales is also about nudging. If you want to look at the larger macro market scenario, you want to look at trends and the mega trends, and how to upbeat your sales, or how to, create a more niche imagined place. How do you want to disrupt, or how do you want to innovate? These are certain things that will be essentially coming into the language of sales at a very leadership space. Of course, also sales interculturally also starts playing an important role. So you have geography, you have organizations, you have behaviors, psychographics, you have infographics, you have data, you have media. What else do you want? As of now, this is what we have. I hope this answers your question. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there are a few questions from people from the corporate communication, side of the business, and they would like to kind of, understand that how this program would help people, from internal as well as external, reputation management, and all of that, advocacy, etc.
Okay. Nandita, do you want to go ahead, or do you want me to?
Reputation management, while it's not like a part of any module, but yes, we are going to discuss these things, because when we are talking about self-branding and how you build your own brand, how you tell your own stories, part of that is about your reputation, right? That's your reputation, who you are. Also, additionally, because I was just talking at the beginning about the different forms of media. Let's say today you can't just be on Facebook, right? When it comes to digital media, you also have to be on Reddit, you also have to be on Discord, maybe, because your new stakeholders are all there. No one's on Facebook anymore. So with these changing formats of where and how you have to present yourself, or how you where you have to communicate, to interact, all of them actually form part of that whole, which is your reputation. So it's basically a part and the whole. We are trying to put together the parts like puzzle pieces. Once they are together, that is your reputation management, basically. So yes,
sure. Yeah, thanks. So Raja has a question. Raja Datta, you could go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening, professors. Thank you very much for the invitation on this session. Myself, Raja Datta. I'm working with Ramco Industries as AGM Marketing. My question is very specific. I would like to know more about the scope of this course, which will help me to grow within the industry, within the organization hierarchy, as well as my domain is marketing and sales. And as administration is also a part of my daily responsibility. So how this will help me to grow for next 4-5 years?
Nandita, should I, or?
Yeah, I could start, and then you could add on anything that is left. Hi, Raja. Thank you for your question. It's a difficult question, I guess, because how can one say whether, how exactly your path will be charted in the next 5 years? But as far as the program is concerned, I don't know if you have ever played a video game, but you could think of this as a kind of leveling up. Right? In video games, we are constantly playing, and we try to level up. We get new armor, we get new weapons, and that's how we progress. So what this will do, because you said you're in the domain of marketing and also admin. I think all the modules, particularly the ones on strategy, communication, analytics, storytelling, data presentation, all of these things are will be useful, I hope, to you. And more importantly, when you're talking about the next 5 years, you're talking about the future, right? So we have tried in our own way to ensure that this program's content is future forward. It's looking at the future. We are trying to bring in a lot of elements from different media, from digital media to gaming, to storytelling, not just storytelling in terms of narrativity, but storytelling in terms of how it is a tool of persuasion, how it can be a strategy as well. So all these things, I hope, do contribute to helping you in the next 4 or 5 years. We are also going to talk about ideas of inclusivity, etc., when we are talking about communication, because increasingly in a world that is so connected and so fractured at the same time, it has become imperative for us to understand how to communicate, how to talk to this rise of new stakeholders, your new customers, your new clients. What are their expectations? So in that manner, I think looking at the next 5 years, I think it's going to be useful. Anything Professor Rath can add, please?
Thank you, Professor Roy. I'm used to calling you Nandita. So I'll just continue with Nandita. Thank you. Mr. Raja, let me just extend the leveling up concept that Professor Roy brought in. You mentioned the next 4 or 5 years. This course is actually about the next 4, 5, and possibly more years. It's looking forward. So it is very, very contemporary. That's the basic attempt in this course, this particular time, as opposed to what was happening in the last 2 years with this course. Not that it was not contemporary, but it becomes even more contemporary. Point number 1, as mentioned. Secondly, you're doing marketing, right? This course is so connected with markets, marketing, and branding. So essentially what this course will offer you is these tools, strategic frameworks, strategic theoretical aspects, which you will have to make use of in your context to make it happen. Like, let me bring back Swamini, what she said. There were things she used. I'm not even aware of it. In fact, we even don't know about it. And now I'm hearing it now, but it also shows that, you know, what you can do with what is given. So we'll give you the tools. And these are tools meant for the next 4 or 5 years, definitely, right? And that those tools will be provided to you. After that, Raja, you have to use those tools. And the kind of tools we'll provide you is tools on strategy, not just strategy. Through communication, how do you develop prediction of the market? How do you understand what's your next window of opportunity? Where can you go? Where is the market going? Where is the next skill set coming in? And am I equipped for that skill set? So it's not just branding yourself in terms of what you did for the last 20 years. Are you self-branding yourself for the next world that is coming in? So you will at least know through these 6 months and this course what more skill sets are required for you to equip yourself with, or what are the ones you have which you didn't look at very conveniently, but you might need to look at. That kind of a landscapic view as well as a portrait view will be provided to you. Does that help, Raja? Hopefully.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So we have questions from Nilesh. Basically, he says that he's involved in a lot of meetings with CXOs, and he works for an analytics company in a financial industry. And I mean, basically, his a lot of work that he does is in the strategic initiative and insights related domain with digital transformation. And he needs to see that, you know, would storytelling be a part of this module or course module, which I think it is, and how it would help, you know, from presenting data and financial data and analytics, communication analytics and data.
Okay. Interesting. I'll take up the second half and then I'll request Professor Roy to take up the first half, which is storytelling and digital transformation and data and all of that. But I'll come to the analytics part. The fact that you already do financial analytics would help you probably handle the kind of analytics that will come in through this course for you, because this is a subset of the larger mainstream analytics that is done. This analytics is actually an overview of communication itself. What kind of story works in what kind of setup, and where is storytelling moving? Should I use this genre of story in this context or not? Is this the trend in stories at the moment, or it is not? You will actually use stories as data to analyze the market, right? And here, not just stories, the visual narratives itself will start playing an important role. They're not just narratives, they are data because they are symptomatic of, what the market is like and where it's moving. So that's the analytics part. So when you want to strategize, a communication for your organization, which should be powerful, you will at least be equipped with the knowledge of the market trend of communication that is happening, and then you know how to top it up or how to disrupt. Coming to data and the storytelling part, I would request Nandita to take over with the answer.
But I think you answered it completely, because that is exactly what, in terms of what Professor Raj said, in terms of the narrative, you have to understand what kinds of narratives are there in the market currently. For example, just one immediate example comes to my mind. I think a couple 2021, the market was disrupted by this group of people in a subreddit called Wall Street Bets. And they did something very interesting with Wall Street. They led to the rise of the stock of a company which had nothing, it was dying, the stores were closing, the company was GameStop. How did that happen? Basically, a narrative was built by this group of people, a narrative saying that we should not let our favorite game space to be taken over or to go bankrupt, to close doors, just because these suits at Wall Street want to make more money. So we will try to do something. We will try to disrupt and inflect the market. So this is one of many examples of how increasingly, like I said, it's more connected and it's more fractured at the same time, how increasingly narratives are affecting the market. They are actually leading to changes. They are actually leading to transformations, some good, some bad. Not all stories are, of course, good. There are destructive narratives. There are narratives that further divide people rather than bring them together. So we are going to look, like Professor Rath has perfectly explained, we are going to look at what narratives are important in the market. It will basically give you a better understanding. That is what, because when we talk of the world around us, when we talk of business or anything else, meaning is not singular. There is always a nexus of meaning. There are many things happening at the same time, and our job is to try and analyze how these things are conflating, they are touching each other and going away, and in that space of collision, how they are changing each other. When it comes to data storytelling, data has become a very important, of course, there's no need to repeat the obvious. Data is important today. Everything is data. We ourselves, our bodies, in fact, have become data these days, as you can see on these dating apps like Tinder and Bumble. So in this larger context, how do we tell stories through data? Because stories at the end are immensely persuasive. That's what I was talking about, because stories formulate our collective imagination. So how do we use data not just as a sequence of numbers or a system of numbers, but as a connected narrative which is persuasive. That is what we will attempt to learn. I hope that answers the question.
Yes. So there is a question from Bhavna, who's heading an export company, and I mean has a lot of strategic communication decisions on purchasing, negotiation, and then on the supply chain and with the customers. And she said that she's like, it's been 15 years that she's not kind of learned after that, and and also she's not very tech savvy, so she's kind of not very sure whether she could kind of go ahead. So maybe you could give her that confidence on the intercultural aspects of communication, etc.
The name is Bhavna, right? There's
Bhavna, yes.
Bhavna, the fact that you are even attending this webinar already shows that there is some confidence you're searching for. And I would say that's a good direction to take. And hopefully searching for solutions which you're not still very clear about is a good indication of in which direction you need to move. Now that you're doing supply chain, right, and you're talking to different stakeholders, and Darius also brings in the intercultural aspect and all, how would this course help you? And you're saying you're not very tech savvy. I think this is a good time to start becoming one. Not being tech savvy is not a problem, but not intending to do something with it may be a problem. And even if you do not intend to do anything with it, gradually in the next 4 or 5 years, the world will make sure you become tech savvy, right? And I think this particular program, or if you do any other ways of trying to become tech savvy, they will gradually get you to understand how to become, and not just become tech savvy, how to use tech and narratives together, right, to convince and persuade and negotiate your way through. What this program can do is offer you the key to open the doors into narratives for internal and external stakeholders. And I think you should try. Eventually you will. Okay, eventually you will, Bhavna, irrespective of whether you take this course or not.
Sure.
Okay.
So I think Anusha Maheshwari has raised her hand. So Anusha, you can go ahead and ask the question, please. Please unmute and go ahead and ask your question, Anusha. In the meanwhile, let me take a question from Vijay. He says that I've got 20 years of experience in corporate communications, and has anyone with 2 decades of experience in corporate communications joined this program? I'm sure. I think I think some of the alums were from that domain, and I'm sure there are people who have done a program from that domain.
Yes, may I know the name again? There's the
Vijay.
20 years
Vijay. Yeah.
Vijay.
Yeah, Vijay.
Okay, Vijay. It's a good thing that after 20 years being the expert in the subject, in the most practical way possible, for you to take a course which academically attempts to understand it, and that too, talking about where it's moving in the next 5 years. So you'll bring in your practical aspects. You will have a lot of knowledge base in it. At the same time, hopefully, there'll be insights into where things are changing. More structured analysis will come in. More structured frameworks will come in. And I think you will be able to, what is the typical thing said? It'll be a win-win situation for both, because you already know lots of things, and then you know a little more how to add to what you already know, right? So I think it would be easy at the same time. Yeah.
Swamini is from communications, corporate communications. Swamini, you would want to share I think you've already shared your experience, but I think, the fact that how you kind of got to know what you didn't know, I think that was a very insightful understanding from a communication, professional. So maybe you could address Vijay.
Yeah, so I mean, Vijay has been doing this for 20 plus years. I've been doing it for 15, not too much of a difference. But, we stay in our zones for so long, and we have this tendency of been there, done that, know it all. But like I said, this particular course opened my eyes to a lot of things I didn't even imagine I would be actually, being exposed to. Because whatever said and done, once we get into the practicality of our corporate worlds, we forget that the literary world, the education world is also so in touch. And these professors, I mean, and I'm not saying it because they're here right now, but they are amazing. I mean, they're not in the corporate world, but they're so on the game, on the ball with what is happening outside, and the anecdotes that they give, right? They showed us so many videos, so many real life examples. They really are very, very practical for us to take back into the corporate world, and very different. So for me, it was an eye-opener in many aspects, even though I have been a communicator, because my sphere is limited. But what this course did was open my eyes to a lot of other zones that I had never seen, never imagined I could see. So if that helps.
Yeah. Thanks, Swamini. That definitely helps. And I think I've read the book of Professor Pragyan Rath, and I mean, I'm a communication, from the communication background, and I really got to know a lot of things that I didn't know. So I think coming to the next question is from Siddharth Shilpi. He's asking a question that, social media has become part of communication plan, and every social media has a different environment and an audience. So how does one prepare, for digital communication, virtual communication on various different channels?
Yeah, this is exactly what we teach in the class. So that was like.
But he has to join the program to know that.
But I think Dr. Roy can give you an overview or a hint. Over to.
Yeah, I think I already spoke about it while answering the previous question, that we will specifically look at this with different forms of medium coming in, different, when we talk of language also, how has the language changed? The way we talk now is, or the way, let's say, we are talking at this webinar is very different from how you would talk at a Discord server, right? So, and why you would do that? Part of it is, there are many things, but I'll just keep it short. Part of it is the audience that you are talking to, right? Who is it that you're talking to, and why are you talking to them? What is the objective? Why do you want to say what you want to say? And second is very important, the medium itself, because the medium lends a kind of specialty, let's say. Medium lends something to the communication. So that is what we are going to talk about when we talk about storytelling or narratives in different forms. Like I was saying, you have Discord, Reddit, Instagram. Instagram is now very popular, but again, at the same time, in the market, you see that there is a growing distrust with anything that is associated with Meta. The growing distrust in the users themselves, in the younger people particularly. I'm sorry. So the younger people particularly are quite wary of these forms of media now. So mostly people are trying to communicate through, again, when I say the medium, people are trying to communicate through memes. So let's say we were talking about 5 years later. 5 years later, those who are now 18 are going to join your company. Do you have to talk to them via GIFs and memes? We don't know. Those are things we'll explore in our classes.
Right. I think one last question, since we have a few minutes. There's a chartered accountant with 6.5 years of experience. Okay, but I'm sorry, it's almost, I think, yeah. So he's asking that, why don't you allow people with less than 8 years of experience? But then, I mean, that's the eligibility for the program. We can't help that. I'm sorry, I thought you had a question.
But I can.
So,
Yes, I
sorry,
can
yeah, go ahead.
The question is, why is it 8 years, not lesser? Is that it?
Yes, yes.
That's the whole point about leadership, that it spent that much time in the industry.
Mhm.
You need some kind of some knowledge and have struggled through it, have been there. That's very, very necessary. So you now understand at what level the course is coming in. The course is not coming in for the person who's just starting out.
Right.
Or you've been there for 5 years. Of course, nowadays things go fast. I've been there 5 years. I'm in a leadership role. Yes, this is for people who've been there for some time.
Right.
And the time plays an important role. Yeah.
So it purposefully has been created for professionals who have 8+ years of experience. I hope, Anusha, that answers your question. With this, we come to the end of the program. Thank you, everyone, for this lovely discussion, very lively and interactive. We could take up, some more questions, but due to the paucity of time, we'll have to, end it here. In case you have any more questions from our program directors and our speakers, to my Khakhtar, regarding the executive program in communication strategies, corporate leaders, you can definitely send in a mail at iimcalcutta@vcnow.in. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, professors, for your time on a weekend and explaining so beautifully what the program is all about, the purpose behind it, and all the benefits that it offers to each and everyone who takes part in this. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Pallavi and Mr. Mehta, for
Thank
calling both of us.
Right.
And
Okay. Thank you,
great
everyone.
round of
So
thank you
we'll,
to Swamini
Yeah.
and Chitralekha in particular.
yes, yes. So we'll be sending an email with all the information details to all the participants. They would be getting all the information details on an email. And these are the details that are there available. I think I'll ask my colleague to share it on the chat. And if you need any more information, you can call us on this number or mail us on the email ID also. Okay, thank you. Have a good evening and a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Thank
Thank you for being part of this session. Thanks,
Thank
gentlemen.
you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, professors. Thank you.